Hey guys, this is Chris Cactus here, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about The Edge of the Radius, my LP from 2015. Going to do a little commentary. Alright, let's go. Approaching the Edge. This is probably the oldest song in terms of when I wrote it. I think I wrote it when I was maybe 16 or so, in the early 2000s. I had recorded a little demo, I guess, with a drum machine and stuff like that. I'm not sure what purpose it was supposed to serve. Maybe like a little interlude or something. My original idea was to open up the album with Tree Man. Just kind of boom, just kind of start rocking. But one of my favorite bands influenced me a lot. Is a band from Philadelphia called CKY. And they had an album called Infiltrate, Destroy, Rebuild that opened up with a song called Escape from Hellview, and I just remember it just kind of started rocking and had that shuffle going on, and I thought it would be a good way to start off the album. But I was going through some old recordings on my computer, and I came across this song, which was originally called The Barren Serenity of the Dreamscape. And I was listening to it again, and I was kind of like, you know what, I don't know, this sounds pretty cool. So I decided to go ahead and re-record it and use it as the intro to this new album. It sounds pretty similar to what it was originally. I kind of replicated the drums and guitars and stuff. But actually the intro that you hear with the keyboards and the build-up and the explosion was actually from the original recording. I just kind of took it and modified it just a little bit, and there it is. Nice little mellow intro before things get started. And here we go with Tree Man. Things really start going. Got that intro, and yeah. Boom! Alright. So I really like this song, Tree Man. I think it's a good representation of all my influences and the album as a whole. You got the good heavy guitars going on, and you got kind of a angular riff going on there, which was an influence of CKY. You got a little bit of a blues thing going on in the verses, and then the little pre-chorus that's coming up in a second. I did kind of an interesting thing with the vocals, which I do on a few songs in this. I kind of split it up, where I sing a little lower part and then I sing a higher part, two separate tracks. It's almost supposed to sound like there's two different vocalists. It's like a ZZ Top kind of thing, but of course I don't have two vocalists, so I just kind of did it all myself. This part's pretty good, pretty heavy. Overdubbed a few different guitars there, and then I used the whammy pedal up an octave or two on the right channel to get that riff, to give it a little sparkle, something. Yeah, the song was the lyrics. I was watching a documentary on Discovery Channel or something, and I think it was about a guy in Indonesia or something like that who had this infection, which caused him to have these warts that just kind of grew out of control and really cumbersome, and they called him Tree Man. So I thought, oh, that kind of sounds like a good title. Although I kind of the lyrics itself kind of changed a little bit, because in my story he's a guy in Haiti, I guess, and talking about voodoo, and he thinks that someone, a Bokor or Hoongan or something like that, put a curse on him. Got an interesting little bridge here. I wanted to slow it down a little bit, quiet it, and I added this little techno beat, which is kind of unusual. And then boom. This part, I originally had a different riff going on here, and I had it for quite a while, and I ended up recording it, and then after I heard it recorded, it wasn't really working for me. So I actually went back and was listening to some stuff that I had written before but wasn't recording, and there was a song I wrote called God Mode, and it was kind of this triplet based riff going on there. and I thought, I wonder if that would work in the Tree Man Bridge. So I changed it. It's in a different key, so I changed it around a little bit, but it ended up working a lot better. So I really like the way it turned out. And that nice guitar solo in there. I'm not really much of a shredder. Not too good with the tapping and stuff, but I did a little bit of it just to, I don't know, kind of worked in the song, I thought. While my first couple EPs were really kind of rock and roll based, and even the album I did before that with the Optical Delusion was pretty much straightforward rock and roll stuff. Between then and now, when I released this, I'd been listening to a little more funk, like some Prince and P-Funk and stuff like that. And I think that influence kind of came out on this song, Have You Seen Me? I even sing it pretty high, kind of like a Bee Gees thing. Someone at the place I work, I played it for her, and she said I sound like a Muppet, I guess like a Elmo or something, but I don't know. So yeah, the riff I had going on there, I had thought of in the shower one day, and I thought of it as you hear it in the intro, kind of a heavy rock kind of thing, but I also thought, this probably could work as a funk thing too. And so I kind of tried it out that way, put them both together, and I thought, hey, that really works. And I came up with this song here. The lyrics are a little bit sarcastic, poking fun. It's pretty much about these young kids who dress up in their hipster clothes and go out to these clubs and start taking drugs. So there's a line in the second verse about a man-made tetragrammaton, and the tetragrammaton is YHWH, the Hebrew name for God. That's kind of what they call it, because they don't really have vowels in the Hebrew written language. And I was thinking about how these kids, they become so involved in drugs, they're almost worshiping it like a god. And so I was thinking of MDMA, which is 4 letters also, and so that's what that means. And I was just thinking about these kids who go out and lead these really destructive lifestyles, and then they wonder why they're not happy. So there was that line. But yeah, I was just kind of thinking about them and making fun of them a little bit. I thought it would be a kind of a funny lyrical subject while you got this kind of funky, almost poppy kind of music going on there. In the verses of the song, I used my P38 guitar, which I had installed a Tamarzio Super Distortion pickup to kind of get more of a classic sound, like ZZ Top kind of thing, whereas the other guitars I use, which are Parker Fly guitars, kind of sound a little more modern and brighter, I guess, kind of a cross between a Gibson guitar and a Fender guitar. But I think I used all my guitars on this track, now that I think of it. And we got this part, I've got the hand clap sample, the 808 thing. And this bass line was actually kind of influenced by Michael Jackson, that song, You Want to Be Starting Something. I like this part, it's got a good funky beat going on there, and the guitars that kind of sound like horns a little bit. I really like that a lot. Then my guitar solo here, that's pretty sick. I actually had to record it in parts because I kept screwing it up. I couldn't play the whole thing all the way through. A little more tapping there. For the bass and some of these lead guitar parts, I use this program called Amplitude 3 because I don't have a big bass amplifier, so I use this software that I think sounded pretty good. But it could also do a guitar simulation. I ended up using it for the guitar solos on Tree Man and on this one because the amp I was using for pretty much everything else is a Vox amp, and I can get some pretty good gain out of it, as you can hear, but I wasn't getting enough for the solos, like to do the tapping and stuff like that. And I got an overdrive pedal and stuff like that I use, and it just wasn't working for me. So I tried out that guitar simulation and like a little Marshall thing, and I really like the way that turned out. So there you go. I can't see the music. How do you see music? Well, I guess if you take enough drugs, you'd probably be seeing the music. I don't know. It just sounded cool, so it doesn't mean much of anything. One of my favorite bands is a band called Clutch. They've been around since the early 90s, and they're just great. I've been a fan for quite a while now. And they influenced my playing a lot, too. And I think you can hear that in this song. This riff uses an unusual blues scale, kind of like you'd hear in the Jimi Hendrix song Who Knows, or Sunshine If You Love uses it also. So that's kind of where that came from. The lyrics are about, well, originally I was having trouble coming up with something for this song. The title Twisting in the Wind is something that my friend Marilyn would say. I'd never heard it before, but it kind of means leaving someone high and dry, I guess. And I thought that'd be a cool title for a song. I didn't have anything other than that. I was trying to write something about, you're in a bad situation, but you kind of maintain a positive attitude and rise up above it, but nothing was really coming out of that. So I was reading a lot about advanced fee fraud, which, you ever get those emails about a Nigerian prince who wants to send you $1 million, but you have to send him $1,000 first, and they just steal your money. I don't know, I was reading a lot about that, and I thought, well, no one ever wrote a song about that before. So that was my subject material for this song. You even hear in the second verse, I'm kind of explaining the whole thing. But I tend not to write songs about myself, how I'm feeling, because, I don't know, well, number one, I just don't want to get that personal, I guess. And two, I don't know, I think it's much more entertaining and easier to get up there and sing about a story rather than a way you were feeling, maybe 10 years ago. It's kind of disingenuous to sing about it with the same conviction every night. So, yeah, I kind of told this story about someone who perpetrated this fraud and kind of eventually saw the error of his ways. And by the end of the song, he kind of sees the light and moves on to a better lifestyle. This guitar solo is kind of like my Chuck Berry solo, I guess. It was kind of a classic rock thing that turned out pretty well. I really like the song a lot. It's got a good beat, and I think it's pretty catchy. I think I sang it pretty well. Oh, I like that little bass part there. A lot of other people like it too, so... Oh, here's a little effect on the vocal there. 2 vocal tracks. On one of them I added an effect to it, kind of build it up. And you got the tambourine going on there too. The song's kind of an old one too. I remember taking some college classes in probably the mid-2000s and writing the lyrics to this song when I should have been paying attention in class. It's a big blue Chevrolet. My dad used to have a big blue Chevrolet. I think it was a 61 Bel Air. He bought it and we kind of fixed it up a little bit. And, he sold it eventually. But I was thinking about these guys who get these crappy cars like these Hondas, and then pieces of junk basically, but they attach like a really loud muffler to it or something. It makes a lot of noise, sound like an electric shaver when it's driving by, and they think they're so cool, and like I'll see one of those driving by and I'm supposed to be like, oh man, look at that guy, want to be friends with him. So it's another sarcastic song. I was making fun of them a little bit. Yeah, the drum beat, I kind of went with a thing on the toms here. which is a little bit different, almost maybe like a Ginger Baker influenced thing, although I guess he probably wouldn't play it as straight as I did. But you know, trying something a little different. And then you get to the bridge, which is a little bit more funky. The bass line is kind of like almost a rockabilly thing, but it sounds different in the context of a funky beat. And then it builds up to this little thing here where I overdubbed some guitars and a keyboard to sound like a Hammond organ. My original plan, I bought a soprano saxophone a while back, and I thought it would be good to have a saxophone line going through this whole part. But as it turns out, a saxophone's really difficult to play, so I could only blow a few notes out of it. You kind of hear that at the end of The Legacy of Alan, which is on the Dead Rainbows EP. But yeah, you can hear me playing a few notes on the saxophone buried in this part here. But yeah, I used the P38 guitar again, which is yeah, a little more classic sound. I added a slapback echo on my vocals to kind of give it a more of a 50 sound, and I sang lower, almost like Elvis kind of thing, I guess. Although, not that I sing like Elvis, but you know, that rockabilly thing I was going for. Oh, Endless Youth, I could say a lot about this song. This is one of my favorites. I was trying to go for something a little different here, which is maybe one of the reasons why I like it. I was thinking back to the music of my childhood, like all this alternative rock that was really popular in the late 80s, early to mid 90s. And whenever I hear a song like that, I just think about being a kid and how great and wonderful it was. I guess everybody says that about their childhood, but I don't know. I was thinking about these lyrics. This is the one song on this album that's really kind of personal. Stuff I was thinking about in the lyrics is kind of about experiences I had as a kid and just kind of thinking back. The chorus is kind of talking about this kind of attitude that I feel was pervaded the Clinton years, in that, you know, there's a global warming and stuff like that, and we really need to turn things around. But, you know, we have the potential to be great, and when we grow up, everything's going to be wonderful. We're going to go into space, and I don't know, there's going to be no war and stuff like that, which probably came from our teachers and adults, you know, being hippies, and they kind of passed it on to us. But by the end of the song, you kind of realize that now everything's kind of changed, and things are a little bit more negative. You know, we've got war going on in the Middle East, and oil in the oceans, you know, that BP pipeline leaking and stuff like that. And we realize that things aren't as great as we thought they would be. And so now we're looking to our children like, oh, maybe they'll fix the problems. You know, it's kind of cyclical, I guess. Musically, again, I went back to the music of the 90s, this alternative rock thing. There's a song called The Backyard by a band called Miracle Legion, that one of my favorite songs ever, and that influenced this a little bit. I was also thinking about like REM and Gin Blossoms and bands like that. That's why during the verses and stuff I added some echo and reverb delay on my voice, so because, you know, you listen to those old songs and nobody knew what they were singing, you know, and so I was like, well, I don't want anybody to know what I'm singing, so I kind of obscured it a little bit. Yeah, the sun becomes the father as the sun becomes the moon. It's, you know, it's all cyclical, you know, and I feel like people of my generation, we just love our nostalgia. You know, I don't know if it's just that we see more of it because we have the internet and everything is just so readily available, and everyone is like that. But I just feel like we just love it, and we love looking back and love that guitar solo. So it turned out really well. Some guitar solos on this album I would improvise, but this one I had really written out, and I really like how it sounded. But anyway, we like to really look back at how great everything was when we were kids, and simpler, more positive time, I guess. And so this was my song, was kind of going back and just wishing I could be a kid again, and just feel that way forever, as many people do, I suppose. And we begin side 2 with an instrumental that's not going to work for me. I got some good riffs going on here. I think they're really catchy. A lot of people seem to like it. I was going to have some lyrics going on, but I really couldn't think of anything. And after hearing the song the way it was, I said, well, maybe it doesn't need any. But then again, the downfall of that is that things tend to get a little repetitive. You're hearing the same riff over and over, so I try to do different things to make it a little more interesting. I add some effects on the guitars. I played like an octave somewhere along the way, and then right after the chorus riff the first time, the drums kind of drop out and you hear those samples, things like that just kind of make it a little more interesting. Yeah, you get to that chorus that's coming up. I added some keyboards to add a little more low end to it. Sounds good on a good system. You're driving around in your car or something, turn that up. Sounds pretty good. But came up with this song. I was playing around on one of my old keyboards. It's one of those Yamaha keyboards that has built-in drum loops and stuff. And I turned on this thing, I think it was called World Beat, and I was just playing this little lick, just improvised it, and it was kind of the main riff of the song. I just kind of expanded upon it. One of the influences of this song, this is pretty funky. You can hear that funk influence. I mean, Clutch always has that funk influence too, so some of it came from that. But I had also been listening to some P-Funk, and there's a song by them called Flashlight. Especially on that chorus riff, that line I'm playing on the bass kind of came from that a little bit. More than a little bit, it came a lot from that. But yeah, this is another song that kind of pulls together all my influences. So I think it's pretty representative of the album as a whole. Except I don't sing on it. But the drums here, I only recorded a few times because it is very repetitive, and I really didn't want to sit down at the drums for 4 minutes or whatever and just play the same thing over and over. So I only played it a few times and just kind of cut and pasted it. I don't know if you can really tell, but maybe you can now that I mention it, but when this chorus comes in with the heavy keyboards, you can hear it's the same as the first one. I just copy and pasted it. I don't know. Maybe that's cheating a little bit, but I don't really care. It worked. I'm sure a lot of pop songs do that anyway, copy and pasting. At least I didn't use any samples on the drums, though. I mean, drum replacement, this is... mixing the drums is a real challenge. It always is, because you got so many different mics, and I had a lot of trouble getting the snare to sound right, and it still doesn't really sound perfect, but it was challenging because the way I tune the snare is really unusual, and it's hard to find another track to reference it with to make sure that it sounds, good. I'm like, this is too much high end on this. Should I take some out, and should I boost this frequency, cut this frequency out? I don't know. But my goal with the drums is to make it sound natural. You could do so many different things in the studio, add effects and whatever. You could add distortion to the snare if you want to. I've heard of that before. But I really wanted it to sound like you're sitting in the room and listening to the band playing. So, the snare probably sounds kind of weird, but that's what the snare sounds like in the room. So, I tuned it really high, and there's a little bit of thump to it, but not too much. It's almost like a 80s kind of thing, I guess. And then all this percussion comes in. This is cool. I was thinking about the world beat thing that the song originally came from, and it had some percussion going on. So you hear the cowbell, and you hear I don't know what you call the thing, but it's ribbed, and you run a stick across it. Got some bongos and a few other things. A tambourine. I was gonna have this going on throughout the whole song, but that would have been a little too busy, so I kind of saved it for a little jam at the end here. It's kind of a cool way to end it. Maybe I'll work on an extended mix. In fact, I would like to kind of jam out this end a little bit more. That'd be cool. The order that I put the tracks in is really important to me. I guess some albums probably you could shuffle the songs around, it won't make a difference, but I like to make sure that everything flows. And Cactus Threat here opens up with a pretty heavy, cymbal-heavy beat. It's got the shuffle thing going on, and you got the slide guitar hitting some high notes. And so my original plan was to open up with Tree Man, and then I thought of having Approaching the Edge kind of spill into Cactus Strut, but I had switched them around. I think it works better the way I have it. Yeah, this was actually my least favorite song when I was working on the album. I don't know why. The guitar, the chord progression is pretty standard 12-bar blues kind of thing, based on the song Bebopalula. That's kind of an old, I'm not sure when it was recorded, 50s or 60s. Gene Vincent song, but I took that progression and kind of made it a little bit heavier. But I don't know, after the song was said and done, I ended up really liking it. I think I sang pretty well on it. You notice I added a little overdrive effect to the vocals. Someone said to me, "Oh, you were singing a little too close to the mic," and I actually wasn't. In fact, I was using my AKG 414, with a pop filter, like I am now. I didn't get too close to it. I just added some overdrive to make it sound a little more sinister. The song, lyrically, is telling a story about kind of a creepy guy. I was thinking about that Police song, Every Breath You Take, which is kind of a creepy thing about a guy stalking a woman, I guess. And the song is kind of like that, and this guy's walking around the boardwalk, some Seaside Heights maybe, kind of stalking this woman, this Calipigian woman, which, she got a big butt. It sounded better to say Calipigian, I don't know, it fit better with the melody too. But I had some lines in there about feel the earth move when you shake, rattle, and roll. So she's kind of a big girl. I kind of heard that in the lyrics of a few other songs, like Born Under a Bad Sign, or A Black Dog, the Led Zeppelin song, kind of talks about a big-legged woman. So I thought, oh, why not? Why not write a song about a guy stalking a big woman down on the boardwalk? It's my New Jersey song, so I'm a Jersey boy myself. But yeah, I decided to play slide guitar in the song. I played a little bit here and there, but I never really played it on an entire song, so I figured I would try it on this. I recorded this solo in a few different parts, and I kind of improvised it a little bit, but I kind of had it alternate between the two channels, left and right, to make it sound like two guitars are dueling a little bit. Makes it sound a little less disjointed, I guess. Yeah, some of the riffs in this song started out as a song called Valley of the Kings, that I was recording during the Dead Rainbows sessions. I never finished that, and so I kind of recycled some of them and added it to the new riffs I had written for the song called Cactus Threat. And there it is. Got this heavy part there, which I really like. Hey, hey. That's really catchy. I like that a lot, actually. And in the end here, I had no idea how to end this song, so I just decided to slow it down a little bit and kind of rip off that old Elmore James song, Dust My Broom, which ZZ Top did it too, on their album Digueo. Yeah, I like the way my voice sounds like that. It reminds me of these old B.B. King songs where he really, the voice was really overdriven, singing into the mic. And a standard blues ending there for a non-standard song. Spanish Galleon is another good song that's representative of the sound of the album as a whole. You got a kind of a clutch thing going on during the verses, and this little intro here, and during the chorus has more of those angular riffs that I kind of got from CKY and bands like that. But yeah, this is the drumming too is kind of a clutch thing. But yeah, this is a good, nice, heavy song. The lyrics, I had the title Spanish Galleon long before I had any lyrics. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and I thought it fit the music in some way. And, I thought about writing about pirates, sailing around and, whatever. I actually had that line, the kraken breaks the surface, tentacles dripping with the brine, floating in my head for a while. And I thought, I could use that in this song, and I could write a story around that, but nothing was really coming to me. And then it was around Christmas time where I was driving by a mall by where I live called Bridgewater Commons, and I just think about so many people go crazy during the holidays. They're beating each other up, fighting over toys and things like that, and they're kind of like pirates in their own way, so kind of used that analogy, imagery, to write a song about pirates and their vans like Spanish galleons. And fight through the pot of white whales, like all the fat white women who are soccer moms who are going out fighting over toys. And then you got this thing going on in the bridge. When I was younger, like in high school, I used to listen to a lot of Jethro Tull. And this is almost like something they would do. I had the mandolin and the acoustic guitar, almost playing like a sea shanty thing, which comes in, I replicate later on the guitar right here. But it fit the nautical theme that I have going on here. And that was a little more interesting than a regular guitar solo. And that riff comes up a few times. It's really good swing and good heavy riff. I like that a lot. I almost wasn't going to include this song. It was going to be on the next album. Believe it or not, I was writing stuff for the next album while I was recording this one. But there was another song that I was going to record for this album, and it wasn't really working. It was a slower song, and I thought kind of really broke up the feel of it, so I decided to finish up Spanish Galleon and include it. And I think that was a good decision to make, because I think it fits in really well, and it's a really good song. In my opinion, I like it a lot. And then you come up to this part. I was going to just end it right here, but I was listening to Mama Said Knock You Out, that LL Cool J song, and the beat in that song just kind of had this kind of lo-fi bass and snare kind of thing. And so I took the bass and snare tracks and kind of added a filter to them to make them lo-fi, and then I added layered some guitars at the end, just to kind of give it a real heavy finish. End it with a bang. And here's the ballad. Musically, this song was influenced by a number of things. I was thinking about Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, great album. I was also thinking about Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. And they kind of, both those albums had the wall of sound thing going on there with a lot of different instrumentation. And I just wanted to kind of do something in that vein with this song. So you heard earlier there's the keyboards going, there's an acoustic guitar, there's a mandolin, there's a glockenspiel in there, bass. The bass line is really cool, kind of a Motown thing going on there. The vocals here is a little bit more of alternative rock influence, so I'm kind of putting a little bit of everything together. Yeah, my singing's okay on this. Probably could have been a little bit better, but, you know, I did my best. I understand that vocals are not my strong point, but I did practice a lot, and I think I've improved quite a bit from my early days where I wasn't very good. Lyrically, this song, kind of a long story, but I'll try to explain it before the song's over. I was reading about what scientists might think is going to happen way further in the future, and I was thinking about the sun, and the sun is a star, and stars go through a life cycle, obviously, where they begin to grow and expand, and then eventually they collapse upon themselves and become a black hole. Well, I was thinking about what might happen if people were still living on the Earth, where they know that the sun is growing and is eventually about to swallow up the Earth. And you know, the human race has gone through so many things, wars and disease and all kinds of disasters, and they always bounce back. The thing is, if the Earth is consumed by the sun, there's really no coming back after that. And it's kind of a hopeless situation. So I was thinking about somebody who's living there at that time, what might be going through his head. And in my little story, that's when all the mystics, the people who have religion, start coming out of the woodwork and bring that to the people, which in my mind, in the distant future, religion's kind of gone away. So people are really looking for answers in a hopeless kind of situation. And this last verse here, after this really cool guitar solo, which is a little bluesy, and I use that whammy pedal again, trying to make it sound sad. This last verse actually was a dream I had on Christmas Eve one night, looking up in the sky and seeing stars, different colors and arranged in patterns. It was really pretty scary, but at the same time I realized there was a higher power, and so I kind of took that and wrote it into the end of the song. A big build up there with many vocal tracks. And I thought it would have been too obvious to end the album with the ballad, so we actually have one more. And the last one, Pyka. Wow, I had so much fun with this song. My idea from the beginning was, could I put together heavy rock and maybe a little bit of metal and, you know, like a poppy dance music, almost like a disco beat. And this is what I came up with. It's almost like what ZZ Top did when they did Eliminator. But yeah, actually, now that I think about it, that beginning riff is a little bit ZZ Top like Sharp Dressed Man or something like that. I've got a few different things going on, some guitar tracks, keyboards, and a cool beat, which I didn't use any samples this time. It was just me and my drums. The lyrics are really self-explanatory. It's Pyka. It's about Pyka, somebody who, in this song, he eats razor blades and nails and sharp objects like that. And of course, I can't eat you, but you taste so good. You know, he knows it's physically bad for him, but he's got an obsession, a condition, and you know he can't help himself. But he's so far gone in the song that the lyrics almost read like a love song. But he's got such an obsession that to him it's almost like love. But you know, in this part, they can't separate us. I've seen all their tricks. They try to tell me that I'm ill, but I say I'm just lovesick. So to him, he's like, well, they don't understand because they don't have this condition. It seemed like an odd subject to write a song about, especially one that is upbeat as this track is. But that's what I like about it. It's a cool riff there, pretty heavy. And then back to the main riff. Now, a lot of people like this song, and I like it too. Is it indicative of where I'm going to go in the future with my music? I don't think so. I already have some stuff written. I'm working on some stuff. It's going to be a little bit different than this even, but this was a fun little experiment. Yeah, we go down. Now here I included the samples and the hi-hats. An 808, a drum machine, which I use periodically throughout the album. Not, to take away the drums and replace it with that as they would do like in the 80s, but to mix them in to add a little flavor. And then we build up to this bridge. I really like this bridge right here. It just gets really heavy and you got that disco beat going on. So it's, you could dance to it, but you can headbang to it at the same time. So I think I really accomplished what I set out to achieve with this song. Love it. And this little guitar lick here is really cool. I've got the whammy pedal going on. I've got some synthesizers. And then there's a part right after this, which is almost like a metal thing with the 16th notes on the guitar. So I just threw everything into the melting pot for this song. And this is what came out of it. Yeah, here you go. Yeah, it's really cool. And then we get this little build up, and then it goes boom, and the last chorus of the album kind of ends it on a high note. So yeah, making this album was a lot of work. My whole life I've been telling myself, oh, I could do that. How hard could that be? And my whole life I've been doing that. And this time around I decided to make a whole album, 11 songs. Wrote everything, played everything, recorded everything, produced it. And sometimes it was really difficult. It took me a really long time. This is recording this at the end of November. The album is going to come out at the beginning of December, but I started working on this in January 2015. And of course I haven't been working on it consistently. I do have a full-time job, and I have a life, a girlfriend, a couple dogs, and a nice house, that needs to be taken care of, family. But, I worked really hard to make the best album I could. I wanted to write really good songs that that I was going to love, and that other people were going to love too, if I'm lucky. And I also wanted to record the album myself at home. Using my home studio, which is modest. I have some expensive microphones and some not so expensive things, but just use a little know-how to try to get a really good sounding album. And if this is the last thing that I ever record and put out, I want to be happy with it, and I am happy with it. And I hope that you've given the album a listen, and I hope you like it too. And if you really like it, just spread the love. Tell your friends. If you don't like it, tell the people you don't like. But anyway, thanks for listening. This is Chris Cactus, and until next time.